You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Welcome back to Secret Sonics. I am your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Infinity. Infinity is a multi-platinum Grammy Award-winning producer based out of LA. He's worked with a wide array of artists from Mary J. Blige to Avicii to 30 Seconds to Mars and many, many more. He strives for musical authenticity, creating music that doesn't sound like everything else. Infinity is comfortable producing everything in the top 40 genre, but isn't afraid to experiment. Recent Secret Sonics guest Edward Court recommended I reach out to Infinity for the show, and to be honest, I was also just blown away by his resume. And ever since I reached out, he's been so gracious and cool. So it's an absolute honor and privilege to introduce Infinity to the podcast. Welcome.
What's up, man? How goes?
It's going good, man. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, man.
So,
thanks for having me on, man.
It's a pleasure. So tell us a bit about how you got started getting involved in music production.
The number one question of all time. I've always been in music. Started, I'm a drummer first. So I think I started around 3 or 4 years old in Connecticut, which is where I'm from. And then, I played in a metal band with my brother till I was about 16 years old. And then I moved to Florida after I graduated high school. I moved in with my brother who had a recording studio. He's on the other side of things. He does like a lot of metal production and mixing. And so, he had a bunch of stuff laying around the house. And I picked up a Roland XP80 and just started fooling around on the keys and trying to figure out what I really wanted to do with music, and kind of got into making beats that way, just not knowing what was going on. I'm like, I don't know how to work this thing from a can of paint, Yeah, man, that's kind of where it got started. And then I just kept pressing on, probably from about 18 to about, honestly, 18 to 21 was like, 21 was when I got my first actual placement, which was Mary J. Blige.
So that's a pretty incredible first placement.
It was. It went from like still producing or making beats in a room in my bedroom or like, pseudo studio. And then just like connecting the dots through the internet because I'm a nerd, and meeting the right people or person and making specific tracks and for artists that I had no idea what was going on. And one day I just got a call like, hey, listen, you're on Mary J. Blige wants this song. And I was like,
wow.
I didn't know what was going on. I was like, it's my first kind of taste of making beats, sending it to a manager, the manager getting a song written to the track, and then it, placing shortly afterwards.
That's an unbelievable story. Was there a song or album that really opened your mind to the possibilities of what could be accomplished with production?
Honestly, I have such a wide variety of stuff that I listen to. I don't think it was like one specific thing that I listened to that was like, this is where I want to be. But, I grew up listening to a number of things from like Metallica to Nirvana to Tool and all types of metal bands. And all of a sudden I'm like, from Tool to Busta Rhymes, and
that's
just
quite
like random stuff like Prodigy and like all these eclectic, eccentric, just left bands that I probably would never listen to growing up, but like 17, 18, just picking up a lot of different things. I think maybe once I started listening to Timbaland and Neptunes, it was where I got a lot of my inspiration from sonically. You know what I mean?
Nice. Was that part of the transition from kind of the more metal rock side to the more urban R&B, pop side?
Absolutely. That, and there was like Brandy, Rodney Jerkins, that style of R&B music. I didn't really listen to like SWV or Total or Next or anything like that. I didn't do like the 90s R&B. I kind of skipped that and went straight to like rap. And so I didn't even start getting into all that stuff until literally in the last probably 5 to 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it was those guys that really kind of broadened my eyes of kind of, and my ears of like, basically, wow, this sonically, do whatever you want, kind of get into that zone and figuring out how I wanted to approach music, because I just didn't really have an idea at the time.
Love it. So these days, what do you look for in an artist when you're trying to see if it will be a good fit working together?
Well, I'm glad you're asking me that now, because a few years ago, I probably wouldn't have the best answer for you. But the biggest thing to me now, and where we are with music right now, is I need to see the drive before talent. Because honestly, there's a million people that have that are amazing. You know what I mean? You got singers, you got rappers, you got all different types of styles from different genres. And if you're an artist these days, you have to do your one side, which is social media or socially marketing yourself. And the other side commitment is the artistry. Yeah. And if you don't have both of those, unfortunately, I feel like you're not going to be with us in the future. And you got to just, to me, that's the biggest thing. And I've been with all types of different groups in the last few years, and I've seen so many come and go. To me, honestly, the ones that hold the test of time are the ones that really understand how to focus and drive their fan base.
I love that. So what do you listen for the first time you hear a song from a potential, artist that you're going to work with? And that said, you prefer to hear like a demo or something live and raw and naked?
You know what? I don't need to hear anything raw or live. Honestly, I would love to hear something finished. I'd love to hear your songwriting ability, your knowledge of how to write a song, whether you might be strong at verses, you might be strong at the hook or melody. It doesn't need to be all three, because at the end of the day, if you're amazing at one thing, I can bring in somebody else for that. Or I can see where your flaws might be, where I can help pick up. Mm-hmm. So I think essentially, as long as you have one of those and that knowledge of where like the cadences of the verse or how it's supposed to flow, as long as you have that really ground idea of that, and not even an idea, if you have that platform for it, to me, that's a good starting point.
I love that. So basically, the artist just needs to have something special that's a spark, and, they're going to the producer, and the producer basically takes over from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, if you're going to come to me and you say, I have this demo and, I want you to check it out, and I'm trying to be an artist in the industry or blah, 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 you need to know the ground rules, you know what I mean? And if you don't have that, like, don't approach me, but get your shit together. And, obviously there's so much stuff to listen to for a blueprint these days that if you don't have that guideline down, it's really hard for me to understand where you're going artistry wise.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like you're looking for an artist that has like a direction of where they want to go, also on a marketing, also on an artistry level.
Yeah.
So they're bringing like a double-edged sword kind of thing.
Totally.
To the table. And they have to have, something that's already locked in place musically.
Yeah. I want them to, if not know their sound 100%, which happens a lot of times. There's rarely a person that comes to me and is like, I know me. Because I know for myself, I didn't know me, you know what I mean, for the longest time. And now that I'm older now and I've went through a lot of things, I know myself where I want to be. And so I can help bring that out of you. And I can help people bring a different side to you that you might not have known about that can bring you to the next level. Yeah, man. So there's definitely different avenues, but just don't come like some of this stuff is really hard to explain in words. It's more so like, if you hear it and you're like, I can automatically feel where it's working or where it's not working.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of things that are hard to explain, and it's just going on in your brain. And,
absolutely,
instinct and stuff.
For sure, absolutely. You can't teach that.
Yeah, totally. So, generally speaking, how do you get the ball rolling when it comes to starting a production? Do you have a go-to instrument or sound bank, or like what's just going through your head?
Being a drummer, I have like a different viewpoint of how I get drums started. And I can do drums first, but I got to have some type of like bass. It could be one noise, like one note that goes through the whole thing. But if that note has some type of like vibrating frequency that gives me a pulse, then I'm able to lay down drums. So I usually start with some type of like one note thing, or obviously with the availability of splice, there's so many different variants. But I think that the key here is like giving something that adds that heartbeat to the music.
Right. And I guess the second thing you're doing is drums.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based off of that.
Yeah, usually drums is like the second thing. Or if I'm doing a melody, there's probably going to be a snap, clap, or some type of like block or percussion. That's always going to be where the snare would be.
That's amazing. I actually noticed, that was something I was going to ask you, is I've noticed that your bottom end and your drums in particular are always meticulously crafted. Uh-huh. Would you mind shedding some light on your process with that?
Nice. No. You will never get that. No, but that's just a kind of a thing where over time I've just, and even till this day, I'm still trying to literally like mold and perfect how to get basses to sit amazing with each other and kicks to sit with, all different types of frequencies. And to me, the biggest thing, if you want to do that, is, making sure that getting your kick to, your side chain to your bass. You want that punch, but you also want that bottom end. So it's one of those things where also it doesn't work like that all the time. It's a sonic thing and it's a frequency. So you take the wrong kick and you sidechain it to a bass. It's not always going to work because you might have a flubby kick. You might have too much of a boxy kick where it cancels out the bass frequencies. You got to find the right sounds and they have to work with each other.
So you spend a lot of time searching for those kinds of sounds.
Yeah. I have kind of like my go-to stuff, and now with this company that I work with, it's my partner's company called Audiobox. It's a lifestyle company, but we do samples and VSTs.
I'll make sure to throw a link in the show notes.
Absolutely, that'd be amazing, man. It kind of varies also from obviously every production.
So you're using a combination of Audiobox and maybe some VSTs to get the drums going.
Yeah, I mean it's majority Audiobox, but obviously. Like I said, with all these, literally, it's just a plethora of sounds. It's like the ideas and the sonics, and there's so many cool different things these days. It's like, even if one thing comes about from Splice, we'll take it back and kind of craft it for what we're looking for. And as far as EQ goes, I'll be honest with you, I don't do a ton of EQing on my drums. Like I said, I think if you can find the perfect sounds without EQing a ton, to me, that's where all that stuff lies.
Oh, amazing. I'm assuming you still compress and reverbs and stuff,
I never compress my kicks.
Wow.
If anything, man, it's EQ, like parametric EQ 2 in FL Studio, which to me is my favorite, or Metric Halo. Channel Strip is one of my favorite, which that's always on vocals for me. But drums, man, it's if anything, I'm bringing out high end. I'm never really boosting low end on kicks. 808s are most likely always going to have
enough low end.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, one of my favorite right now is called VOG from the UAD, which is called The Voice of God.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which is basically like a subharmonic synthesizer.
Something like R bass and waves or whatever.
Yeah, to me, it's better than R bass, but it brings out these, it's almost like sometimes it's overkill immediately.
You have to be careful with it.
Yeah, you just got to be careful a little bit.
Well, it seems like you have a good ear for that stuff. So I would trust you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. It's 47 years of magic. You know what I mean? It's all that work I've been putting in.
Totally. So let's continue on a typical song creation, chronologically. So you've gotten this vibe and you've gotten the drums together. What happens after that?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically if I'm in the studio, I am minimizing the process of trying to create the full song in the session. You want your basic structure. You know what I mean? You want your verse, your pre, and your hook, or your chorus. Yeah. And maybe you want a post, which not a lot. And sometimes writers want a bridge, but I personally don't care for bridges. But yeah, I mean, I think you just want that format. It's different because sometimes writers want more sounds. Sometimes you want to dig in. But to me, as I've gotten older, I've learned that in my younger years, I would get lost trying to make the beat before the song was done. And it just hindered the process rather than help the process.
Wow.
So if I can get a structure or a skeleton structure of drums and a really cool melody that is able to flow through the whole session without, me trying to add strings and a bass and different synths and drops and cuts, because that is not needed until you have an awesome song.
Right. I love that. So it's the most important thing is to make the song as amazing as possible. Next, then you focus on the production end of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. 1000%.
So what influences your decisions when it comes to structure and arrangement?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of, it's more of first of all, it's a feeling.
That's legit. You could see.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other way to explain it, but you hear a song and somebody might be singing me oh, I think I got the hook. And then they sing the hook and you're like, okay, cool. That kind of sounds like a pre. And so we'll lay that idea down. And usually we tend to do melodies first. And if we can come up with a really strong verse, pre, and hook, then we go and we just go back to we go back and do lyrics. But again, that's all based on feeling. And you can kind of tell what a verse could be, what a pre-hook will be, and what a hook will be. Obviously, the hook being the strongest. Typically, if you have a hook, then you work backwards from that. That's usually the process. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it works or it happens 100% of the time, but if we can nail a hook and work our way backwards, then I think you're in the right path for that.
Love that. It's interesting you said